actually 4 phases in a game of Chaos in the Old World each round. These are helpfully summarized on each player's power card. The first phase is called the Old World phase. And in it, the player with the lowest threat, again, threat is this little round, the number in the little round thing, is going to turn over the top card of the Old World deck. If there's any decisions to be made on that card, then the player with the lowest threat that turned the card over is the one that makes those decisions. This one, for example, says choose any peasant token in play and replace it with a hero token. Discard this card instead of adding it to the Old World track. So that would actually be discarded. But some of them do not say discarded, and they'll be placed on the 1, and then the next turn the 1 will move to 2, the next one will be placed here, and then after that it will slide off, and they're removed from the game. So that would be something like that. The next phase is called the draw phase, and each player checks their power sheet for their draw phase instructions. For example, Khorne says draw 2 chaos cards, Nurgle says draw 2 chaos cards, Zenith says draw until you have 5 chaos cards. If you wish, discard one first, whereas Slaanesh says draw 2 chaos cards. So then they'll do as they're told. So Khorne would draw 2 chaos cards, add them to his hand, and there's no hand limit. So after that, each player moves their power token to the highlighted number on the power. So basically, you can't save points between the rounds. They always, at the beginning of the round, go back to their default value. So that's the draw phase. The next phase is called the summoning phase, starting with Khorne and going in the standard order, which is Khorne, Nurgle, Zenith, Slaanesh. Each player is going to do one of 2 things. They're going to either summon a figure onto the board, or they're going to play a chaos card. So each player is going to do that, and then the next player is going to do that, and so on. As you do that, you'll be moving your token down until you get to 0, or until you decide you don't want to do it anymore, in which case you say I pass, and you'll move your token down to 0. The phase will continue, kind of going in each player in order, then starting back over with Khorne, until all the players have their tokens on 0. So the 2 things that you can do, you can summon. The first thing is summoning a figure onto the board. To do that, you pay their cost. So for example, for Khorne, a cultist costs 1, Bloodletter costs 2, and Bloodthirster costs 3. So you'd pay that. So if I wanted to summon a cultist, I would pay 1, then I would take a cultist figure, and I could place it on the board. Now, well, okay, so I could take one either from off the board or from one that's already here. So summoning is basically the same as moving. So if I wanted to place a cultist in the Border Princess, I could either summon one from off the board, or I could remove that one and move it here. Now the only restriction is that you can only place figures into regions that are either already have one of your figures or are adjacent, so share a border with another region. The exception to that being if you have no figures on the board, then you can put a figure into any region. The second thing that you can do is to play a chaos card. So to do that, you pay the cost. So for example, this one, the cost would be 1. And then you place that card in any open space on the board. If there are no open spaces, then you can't play the card. So to place it into a space, you just do something like that. So those are the 2 things that you can do in the summoning phase. So again, that continues until all the players have their tokens on 0. The next phase is the battle phase. So we're going to start with Norsca, and then we're going to move in standard region order. And for each region, we're going to look at what's in this region. You can see for this example, I set up 2 Nurgle warriors and 1 Khorne cultist and 1 peasant token. So each player is going to count up the total attack value of all the figures in the region. So for this example, the total for Khorne would be 0 because their cultists have 0 attack. For Nurgle, it would be 2 because they have 2. So then each player is going to roll that many dice. So Nurgle would take 2 dice and roll them. And wow, that's a sucky roll because you hit on a 4, a 5, or a 6 is a hit. Moreover, a 6 actually explodes. So let's just roll it again. That's better. I got 2 6s. So I've got 2 hits already. Now, since they're both 6s, I re-roll them again. And there's another 4. So I get a total of 3 hits. So then I assign those hits. So I've got 3 hits to assign. A cultist has a defense of 1, so I could assign 1 hit to him, and since that's more than his defense value, equal to or more than his defense value, it kills him. So I turn him over to his side, and then I've still got 2 hits to assign, but the only other thing I can assign hits to is this peasant token, but they only take 1 hit, so I can kill him. After everyone has rolled, then any tipped over figures are removed from the board. You do that for each region, and that's the battle phase. The 5th phase is called the corruption phase, which is actually broken into 2 steps, the domination step and the corruption step. The domination step is where each players will score conquest points for dominating the board regions. So you start with Norsca, you go in standard region order, and then for each region, each player in the region with figures or cards in the region will calculate their domination value. To do that, you total up the summoning cost of your cards added to the number of figures you have. So in this example, Nurgle will have a 2 plus 1 figure for a 3, whereas Khorne will have 1 for the card and 1 for the cultist for 2. So after each player has determine their domination value, they take the highest domination value, so that would be Nurgle's 3, and compare that to the region's resistance value, which is in this example a 4. So if your domination value is higher than that, then you immediately score points for conquest. That you immediately score this number, the conquest value, in victory points. So, for example, let's say I had that. Now my total is 2, 3, 4, 5, which is higher. It's still the highest domination value in the region, and now it's higher than the resistance of the region. So I would score 4 victory points. 1, 2, 3, 4, like so. The second part of the corruption phase is where we place corruption tokens into the region. So for each cultist figure in the region, players are going to place 1 corruption token. And then after everyone has done that, so I guess Nurgle needs to put 1 as well. After everyone has done that, you count up the total number of corruption tokens in the region. If that's greater than 12, then the region is ruined. So for here I still have a long way to go, but let's pretend there was 12 tokens in this region. When a region is ruined, you take the top card from the Ruination deck and you place it face up in that region. And then every player with corruption token that placed a corruption token in this round will score whatever it says here for Ruiner's score. So in this example it says Ruiners score 3 points each. So Nurgle and Khorne would both immediately score 3 victory points. The 6th and final phase of each turn is called the end phase, which is made up of several steps. The first step is to remove all the chaos cards from the board and put them in the player's discard piles. So I'll put this in Khorne's discard pile and this in Nurgle's discard pile. The next step is to resolve any hero tokens. So when you do that, you figure out the player who has the highest threat and who has, for each region, you look at which player has figures in that region and has the highest threat. So that player will lose one figure in that region for each hero token. The next step is to resolve the Old World cards in the track. So some Old World cards will say, so for example this one says, in the end phase when Old World cards are resolved, the player with the lowest threat score removes 1 hero token from the board. So this is the part of the turn when that happens. The next step is to resolve all the Ruination cards. So for each face-up Ruination cards, the players are going to score points for that region. So the player with the most corruption tokens in the region gets the first points, and the second gets the second points. So in this example, Astalia has a Ruination, a face-up Ruination card. So I'm going to figure out who has the most Ruination tokens in that region. And that person is going to, then we're going to look that up. Astalia, that person will score 9 points. Will score 9 points, and the person who has the second highest number of Ruination tokens is going to score 4 points. Now if there's a tie, no matter how many players, what you do is you add up the first and the second, and then you divide those as evenly as possible between the players. And then those are the only points that are scored in that round. So once you do that, you're going to turn the Ruination card face down, and you're going to remove all the corruption tokens from the board in that region. Then you're going to move on to the next region that has a Ruination card. The next part of the end phase has to do with the threat dials. So during various parts of the turn, the players accomplish different things that allow them to put these advancement tokens on their dials. In this example, Slaanesh has 1 token, Zenith has 1 token, and Nurgle has 2, and Khorne has 0. So at this point in the turn, everyone who has at least 1 token on their dial is able to turn their dial by 1. Now, the person with the most tokens on their dial, which in this case is Nurgle, gets to do a second turn. Now, if there's a tie, so say Zenith had 2 and Nurgle had 2, then nobody gets that second turn. Everybody just turns their dial 1, or everyone with tokens just turns them 1. The last part of the round is just to check for victory, to see if the game ends. So you do that again by checking to see if anybody has a victory on their dial, to make sure anybody has passed the 50 victory points, if the Ruination cards are empty, or if the Old World deck is empty. And if any of those happens, then the game is over and you're going to figure out who won. So that's kind of a quick rules primer for Chaos in the Old World. It seems like a lot of moving pieces, a lot of different systems, but really it all works together, and it's all simple when you get down to it. So I hope you enjoy the game, and I hope this video has been helpful. Thanks a lot.